Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers. I've written a review, an appreciation about a book involving a guy I really liked. My wife and I have been very impressed with his work and his grasp of English and the way he expressed himself. He's known to many people as P.G. Wodehouse, and there's been an awful lot written about him, but this little book is a special one as far as I'm concerned. It's brand new. It came out in the middle of 2009. It's called the Inimitable P.G. Wodehouse. It's got a subtitle, The Story of His Life, A Treasury of His Wit, and it's written by Mark Hitchens with some very nice illustrations by Wendy McCleary. Now, it's not a very big book. It runs into just over 200 pages. It's nice and slim. It's eminently readable. I've got a review of it on Flickr. And I'm interested in it because I had correspondence with Plum when I was actually a student. In those days I was basically a schoolboy, but he was still alive as I was growing up, and I really loved Eucridge as one of the characters. It caught my attention when I saw the television programme, and ever since then I've always had a regard for him, irrespective of some of the unfortunate things that happened during his life. Having said all of that, he was an eccentric fella, and I think a genuinely really nice guy who just didn't quite see it the way a lot of us do. And he's like many writers I've come across. They're like that, and it's their beauty and their warmth which we remember them for, rather than any other things. What I've called this title, again with my wife Elizabeth, we've written this together, 20th Century Toffs Revisited. Now, just because I speak with a posh southern public school accent, everybody assumes I'm posh or I'm a toff or whatever it might be. Forget about all of that, because what we're talking about here is that in the more or less recent past there have been considerable criticism of those specimens of humanity known as the toffs. I get it called that all the time as a barrister. I'm flattered. Usually they're stereotyping me when they say that, as wealthy, elegant, snobbish, callow, shallow, charmingly witless, and, except for the occasional intrusive and pesky Yank, American, they are indubitably English, of course. One of the nice things about Plum was that he covered America and England. He settled, of course, in New York, and so he had a great love for America. Remember, not for them the world of hard work, these toffs. They seem to breeze through their privileged lives, generating class envy along the way, to most of which they are oblivious. Well, and they're not all like Sergeant Wilson from Dad's Army, but again they are the same sort of character mould. And of course such grumbling and griping about toffs often usually comes as a result of political bias. One might argue, of course, that although class as it used to be has largely disappeared from British society, class consciousness lingers still. Bearing all this in mind, no one that we know of has been as successful an anatomist as the English upper, middle and upper classes of the recent past, therefore, as P.G. Wodehouse. Drawn by his skillful pen and illuminated by his obvious humanity, his characters, in our view, emerge as rounded human beings, and rather endearing ones at that, each with his or her own peculiarities, brilliantly shown, of course, in the updated Jeeves and Wooster by Fry and Laurie. They amuse us by what they say and do, but they're never dismissed outright as figures of fun, because there's always a bit of a serious side to it. The achievement of Wodehouse, world-famous creator of Bertie Wooster, Jeeves and Gussie Finknottle and a legion of lesser lights, is to make toffs lovable, laughable and forgivable. And now yet another tribute to him has appeared with Hitchens' balanced biographical work, split as it is into the story of his life and a treasury of his wit, in just over the 200 pages. Read it. You'll love it if you're new to Wodehouse, or if you're an old hand. Both the title and the subtitle are apt, except it's unlikely that any biographer will be able to plumb the depths of Wodehouse's somewhat mysterious and enigmatic character. His plays, musicals and novels were largely wildly successful on both sides of the Atlantic. He enjoyed his fame and the money that went with it, no doubt about that. But he was one of those people who's in the world, but not of it. And I think that's a fair point to say about quite a lot of writers, certainly ones that I've met anyway. According to Hitchens and other biographers of Wodehouse, or Plum as I say it was called to most, he liked nothing better than a quiet evening at home with his pipe and his tobacco. His wife Ethel, clearly the opposite, was a fearsomely well organised and enthusiastic party animal. Her decisive, businesslike brain was the perfect foil for the reclusive Plum, who preferred an atmosphere of seclusion in which his imagination and droll wit could flourish. I remember the letters I got, and there was always a nice little picture of a dog, because they had quite a lot of charitable concerns in New York about sort of dog homes and so forth, and you get a nice feel about the Englishness of it, but that was the guy himself. So content, therefore, was Wodehouse to detach himself from real life, that, as Hitchens explains, his judgment on political matters was flawed. Hence what I can only describe really, and we certainly feel that way, it was a tragedy of his incarceration in a German detention camp during World War II after the fall of France. He was allowed by his captors, who persuaded him to give a series of broadcasts which at the time were considered to be giving aid and comfort to the enemy. It's understandable because of the nature of what was happening in 1940. Controversy, of course, still rages about this as to whether he was treacherous, naive, or under threat. I don't think we'll ever know personally. Hitchens' book basically consists of two parts. As I've said, you've got the brief biography updated by what we now know. There's been some good stuff on BBC about the broadcasts and what's happened since. I think people must know about it, but personally I think it's been overrated. The second part of the book, in my view, is an excellent treasure. It's one I shall certainly treasure, of his memorable quotations selected from Wodehouse's fiction for their autobiographical implications. The result, in our view, is quite delightful, especially if you're a fan of Wodehouse. If you're not, this little gem of a book, brilliantly illustrated by Wendy, will introduce you beautifully to Plum's gentle, sardonic oeuvre. Do get it, it's great fun. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.